So, Paul, as someone who's actually created many really, really successful jingles and also sold over 3 million programs, how would you define like the success of music in marketing? What does that look like?
That's a great question, Alec, and thanks for that. So here's the thing about music. Now, music's obviously an emotion. Music creates emotions in people. Now, marketing, of course, you need great copy, you need great visuals, so forth and so on. But if you can add music to marketing, what happens is it really opens people up, it really gets to their heart. Okay, and so I've spent a lot of my earlier years in my marketing career writing music for advertising, called it jingles, right? That's what they call it, right? And sometimes I say that to people, jingles, they go, what's a jingle? So it's music for marketing, and I wrote music for a lot of the major corporations, in America and even worldwide. And my most famous piece of marketing music was a jingle I wrote for the Ford Motor Company called Have You Driven a Ford Lately? So it's Have You Driven a Ford Lately? Now, some people will remember that depending on their age, but Ford used that jingle for 9 years. Okay, so that was a long run for me. And the funny thing is, a lot of times when I've told people that I did that, they would say, "Oh yeah, what's your favorite jingle?" And I would sing, "Have you driven a Ford?" And they would go, "Lately," right? So obviously, a lot of people heard it. But the whole idea of music in marketing, I think, is very powerful. As you know, just in YouTube videos and so forth, music's a major part of that stuff. What I like to tell people is if you can brand the music to what your message is, so it's branded, so it's not just like a piece of music slopped onto it, then that's great. And I know that because of, again, my experience with the advertising world, but I also have a company called Success Songs. And so success songs are songs I've written for many people in the personal development world as a branding mechanism. So for instance, Harv Eker, Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, Alex Mandossian, Brendon Burchard, and many other people, where I've taken their message, if you will, and written a song around who they are. So now what happens is when you play the song, like Harv Eker, I wrote a song for him called I've Got a Millionaire Mind, which was a branded piece of advertising for his Millionaire Mind Intensive course. And the reason I wrote it, the reason I called it I've Got a Millionaire Mind, is because during the event, he would say to people, and there's 4,000 or 5,000 people there, he'd say, turn to your neighbor, give him a high five, and say, I've got a millionaire mind. So I wrote him a song called I've Got a Millionaire Mind. Right? And every time that song plays, they think of Harv. Every time the Jack Canfield song plays, they think of Jack. So it's a really powerful branding piece. So I would encourage people that are doing marketing campaigns and so forth to think about whatever music they use, that the music should be really just an extension of their messaging, as opposed to just being something that's, let me just put some music on it. Because again, music's very emotional, man. I mean, I remember the first song, my first kiss in high school, bro. I remember the song, my first one, it was A Whole Lot of Love by Led Zeppelin. So it's a really powerful thing. And what I've done recently with some people, and again, I don't really do it too much anymore, depending on who the person that might want a song. But I just did a campaign for one of the companies that I advise. I do some advising for companies, helping them with their marketing, messaging, and positioning. And one of the companies was a company called C60, which is it's a antioxidant molecule, right? So it's in the health world. And I met these people at a biohacking event, and they said, hey, we'd love a jingle. And I said, I really don't do that anymore, because I really don't, right? Depending on who you are. And so finally, after talking to them on the phone for a while and so forth, I said, okay, I'll do it for you. So I wrote them a 3-minute song. And the song is called Powering Your Purpose. And it's all about this molecule that you take, which will power your purpose. And so they loved the song. The song's great. And I said, well, here's the thing. The song's great. I'm not quite sure how many people are going to sing it. It's on Spotify and whatever. But the truth of the matter is, you can take snippets of that song and use it as an intro to your podcast. Use it as an intro to your YouTube channel. Use it as a branding piece and other pieces of marketing you use. So the whole idea of music and marketing, man, I think it's a powerful, powerful thing that all people should do.
I love it. I love it. It's such valuable insights. And I know we're going to be diving much, much deeper into music and marketing, but also all things, personal development, marketing, personal development. You sold over 3 million programs. I'm so excited to have Paul Hoffman here on the Marketing Minds podcast. We've known each other for quite some time. We're just reminiscing on when we first met at a mastermind, and
Yep.
definitely always just brings so much positive, contagious energy, and that's something that really, defines Paul and who he is. But his accomplishments are just tremendous. You heard how he's written some jingles for some of the biggest companies in the world. We're definitely going to be diving deeper into that. But he's also had programs in personal development that have impacted over 3 million people worldwide. Not many people can say that they've had programs that have impacted over 3 million people. That includes sculptations, tuning in, success songs, day sculpting, strong mind, strong body, and many, many more. So there's all of these amazing programs. We're going to talk about that, how he's been marketing that. I'm really excited to dive into that. And he's worked with some of the biggest names and thought leaders. He mentioned some earlier, of course, Harv Eker, Jack Canfield, John Assaraf, the Dalai Lama, Stephen Covey, Marcy Shimoff, Brendon Burchard, Joe Polish, Peter Diamandis, Mike Koenigs, and many, many others. That's just a few of this extensive list of people that he has worked with. And he's combined all of this together, his ability to craft and have music and marketing, his ability with mindset and personal development, and of course, marketing overall. And I'm so excited. Paul, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey man, thanks for having me, Aleric. Yes, I do. Yeah, we were reminiscing about how we met the first time, and I was telling Aleric, who's ever listening to this, is that I have a folder on my computer. It's called the Aleric folder, okay? Because Aleric gives such great value every time he does a post or he sends an email out or whatever, or does he always delivers great value. So, and I'll get into talking about my philosophy around that in a sec, but so every time I see whatever in fact, this morning he did a post on Facebook that, because I think maybe yesterday or the day before, you interviewed Austin, right? Who's somebody I just got introduced to, right? And I'm telling you, if you just follow Aleric, okay, and implement or execute even a handful of what he shares with you, you're on your way to massive success. So I just want to thank you for your dedication, your commitment to really up-leveling people and really getting them to really tune in, as like I call it, tune into what they want to create in their life through the brilliance of how you can help them in their messaging and basically how they show up in the world, Aleric.
Well, thank you so much, Paul. That truly means a lot. I do really appreciate that. Thank you. And so kind of diving into it, I'm really excited. And we're going to talk about how you've sold over 3 million programs. We're going to talk about some of the marketing that you're doing today and the personal development elements. I know also there's a lot that you have really mastered on that side. But you mentioned your famous "Have You Driven a Ford Lately" jingle that you wrote. I'm so curious, how did that jingle come to be? What's your process for creating and crafting jingles like that? And then how can that be applied, in today's environment? So of course, like, what was the process then? And then what would potentially be an application of that?
Well, back then, so I wrote that jingle. I don't even know if you were born yet, bro, but I wrote that jingle 1980. And so the process in writing jingles, it's changed since then. The advertising business has changed completely. But so basically what would happen is, an advertising agency would call me up and say, hey, we've got this idea. We'd like you to write something for it. And I'd say, okay, great. And back then what would happen is, they would have what's called competitions. Okay. So we were called, my company was called a music house. So for the Have You Driven a Ford Lately song, there was probably 10 different music houses that were, presenting ideas. Okay. Now, obviously I won. So the process is basically, you have a meeting with the advertising agency. They kind of pick your brain. I'm very, very much into finding out as much information as I can about the product and the market, the avatar, all the things that are necessary to really create a very crafted, targeted piece of marketing. And so then they'd give me a script and, listen, man, sometimes it's like pulling teeth, okay? As you well know, you're in this world, sometimes you look at a blank piece of paper or whatever, but So it took probably, I would say maybe I would say 2 or 3 days to come up with it. Now I wrote a couple of different versions, obviously, and so the process is, here's the script. Give me a piece of paper. Here's the script, and then I just kind of something comes out. I try not to think too hard about it, Aleric, to be honest with you, because I don't want to get in my own way. Because the biggest obstacle to success in anything in life is you. And so if you learn how to get out of your own way, then what happens is the universe opens up to you. Okay. So if you think like this, that's the box you're in. But if you open yourself up, then that can happen. And so that was the process with Have You Driven a Ford lately? And that's kind of the process I do with anything. So as I mentioned earlier, I just wrote a marketing music campaign for this company called C60, and I just basically spent probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours on the phone with them, talking about. Now I've never written, I wrote. I mean, this thing's an antioxidant molecule, okay, which is fascinating. So I'm singing about a molecule, but it's a biohacking piece of health, and so just having a conversation with them, talking to them, going through all their stuff, looking at their website, just getting as much data as possible, right? And then I write a lyric, right? I write something that I think really captures the spirit of who they are. Right. So if I was going to write a song for your company, Aleric, I'd get on the phone with you. We talk a little bit about it. I find out all the stuff you do, even the stuff that you might think would be not important. I'm really good at getting in there and just getting it all out. Write a lyric, and then what I do is I will present it to the client, if you will, and usually we make 1 or 2 changes. Okay, they might want a different word or something, and then I just sit at the piano, bro, and go for it. And just write. And that's kind of how it is. But I make sure that when I write something that I'm going to use in marketing, I make sure that it's adaptable. So it's one thing to write a song, a 3-minute song, but at the same time, you're not going to usually use a 3-minute song. You're going to use maybe pieces of it. And it's kind of the same thing with Have You Driven a Ford lately? So have you driven a Ford lately? The only thing most people heard was, have you driven a Ford lately, at the end of the commercial. But there was a whole song that got played maybe once or twice, right? Nobody ever knew that. I tell people, have you heard the whole song? What do you mean there was a song, right? And the same thing with a piece of marketing music. So what I try to do is I try to craft it so you can use maybe a little, a little bit in the front, use the hook at the end, maybe use it the hook in the middle. Because maybe what you want to do when you're doing a marketing campaign and using a branded piece of music is you might want to start out with the song, and then you might cut to different images and possibly a voiceover saying something. And then you might want to come back to the song, so forth and so on. So that's kind of how I do it. Again, I think it's a powerful element to any marketing campaign if you can do it properly. Because again, marketing, and you know this, Aleric, I mean, why does one YouTube video get 10 views and why does another one get 70 million views? Okay. Well, it's because it's identifiable. It's speaking to people and it's creating some kind of an emotional feeling in them that they want more of. I would think that's probably what you would agree with that, right? And so the same thing happens with music and marketing. Again, you want to be able to really direct it to the messaging so that when somebody hears it, it's not necessarily that you want them to sing the song, although that's pretty good to do. I'm pretty good at doing that. But it's really about the emotional feeling that they get from it. And that's any piece of marketing, any copy, any video, anything in marketing. We all know that they say people buy an emotion. Now, I would tend to agree with that. My little caveat on that is people do buy an emotion, but the emotion has to be an authentic, in my opinion, an authentic, heartfelt emotion. Okay? Because people don't buy from their head, they buy from their heart. And I think those people that are able to understand that in the marketing world will be very successful and are successful. Those that don't won't. Okay. And so every time that I do something in marketing where I'm creating something for one of my products, or if I'm advising somebody, I'm always starting from the standpoint of how is this going to affect somebody emotionally? And are they going to really want to feel the essence of what the message is? If that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Especially, music really taps into the soul, right? It's the language of the
Absolutely.
soul. And I think that's the thing is you're tapping into that emotion through that music that you're doing, which is just so fascinating. And also the transition that you've had from really diving deep on the jingles and the music side, also everything you're doing on personal development, your overall marketing strategies and processes. What have you drawn from, this experience in the music industry, writing jingles, and applied to personal development, applied to marketing, that you think are potentially things that could also apply to other people if they're looking to market their business or grow in personal development? What are some of the things that you've pulled from that past experience that you've applied to today?
One thing would be the emotional component of it, okay? And then the other thing would be actually really being clear about what your message is, okay? There's a lot of noise out there, Aleric, as you well know, okay? And I'm a big fan. I always tell people, listen, there's a lot of noise out there, but I'm going to create my own, okay? And I mean that, okay? Because I'm one of those kind of guys that I like to invent my own language. Now, I will tell everybody that's listening, sometimes that gets me into trouble, and sometimes it works well. But the truth of the matter is, and again, I always say this, and I don't come up with this, I mean, this is like an expression we've all heard. When you're going right, I'm going left, okay? Because if you want to be successful in marketing and you want your product to stand out, which we all do, this isn't rocket science, right? Then you need to be unique. You need to be able to fight through it. Listen, I have a brain technology, okay? It's called sculptations. It's a binaural beat technology, which of course I write all the music for, and I do the visualization process on it. And there's a shitload, I'm sorry I'm cursing, of binaural beat technologies out there. There's a lot of it out there. So why is mine different? Well, mine's different, because I do it. That's at least my opinion. But I do it differently than everybody else. I take binaural beats and I add a heartbeat and a breathing pattern to it. I call it multivariant resonant technology. So I'm creating some language, differentiating the language from a binaural beat, if you will, okay? And so when you do your marketing, and again, this is the same thing with music too, when you're writing a song, there's a lot of love songs out there, bro, okay? Taylor Swift has a lot of them, okay? I've even got a few. But again, it's really, when you write something, it's really designed to get people to feel the emotion of the song because they're going through that emotion. And in marketing, people are going to buy your product because they're going through that emotion. And you're addressing that emotion. I don't believe, I get arguments about this all the time from people, but I don't believe about, you're solving pain points. I don't like to talk about pain. I don't want to remind people that they have pain. We all have pain, Aleric. It's not rocket science. But I'm not interested in reminding people about pain. What I'm interested in doing when I write marketing copy and do marketing, I'm interested in getting people to observe where they are and identify what's holding them back. Now, the identification of what's holding them back, quote, is their pain point. But I don't call it pain because I don't want people to be reminded. Mine works in funny ways. I'm working on a book now, okay? The working title of it is Your Mind Has a Mind of Its Own, okay? Which it does. So unless you can direct your mind where you want it to go, and I use this language in my brain stuff, your mind's going to take you wherever it wants to take you. It's fight or flight. That's just the way it works. But if you can identify as a consumer of a piece of marketing, what is holding you back in life? Okay, that'll be your pain point, is how I look at it. And then if I can get in there and work my magic, so you go, oh my God, this guy here this is what I need, right? So again, there's different ways to market so that it's not a broad sense, if you will, but it's a very strategic, targeted point of view, depending on what the product is. Now, if somebody wants to lose weight, my copy's not going to say, are you tired of being fat? But there are people that do that. But the truth of the matter is when you're marketing about losing weight, and one of my products, one of my brain things does address, I call it ideal weight and health. And my marketing message in that particular piece is Do you miss looking in the mirror and loving yourself? Well, you can have that again. So it's about really getting them to feel that thing in them that's holding them back. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, the biggest obstacle to success or having anything in your life is you. Because either you're going to say yes or no. It's not rocket science. I always tell people that life's an either or principle. Either you're going to do it or you're not. There's no such thing as maybe. Maybe is just another excuse, right? And I always like to tell people that there's always two forms to an excuse. I'm getting a little bit into the PD psychology here a little bit, but there's always two forms to an excuse, Aleric. There's the excuse you make. So if you said to me, hey, Paul, can you do blah, blah, blah? I go, nah, bro, I just can't do it, blah, blah. That's my excuse, right? Then there's the excuse that you make to yourself for the excuse, which gives you permission to justify the excuse. So the truth of the matter is every time somebody makes an excuse, they have to justify it to themselves. I don't have to justify it to you because I'm giving you the excuse, but I got to justify it to myself. So that's okay if I made an excuse. And it's actually not okay. Okay, now there's some reasons, sometimes, listen, if I schedule a call with you and I got a pet emergency, that's not an excuse. It's just, hey, bro, I'm sorry, I can't do the thing right now. I got a pet emergency or whatever. But a lot of times people make excuses for what they want to do because maybe they're not sure of themselves, or maybe they don't know what to do, or all the stuff that their inner critic will tell you. Because again, the most important conversation that you can have with yourself from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, and then in your dream state, is the one you have with you. I could talk to you, till the cows come in, bro, and it'll be a lot of fun because we could have a lot of fun. But when I'm sitting on the couch or I'm taking a walk or whatever I'm doing and I'm alone with myself, how do I talk to myself? How do I empower myself? How do I inspire myself? And so when marketing comes, you are talking one-to-one to people. Even though you might be sending it out to millions of people, it's a one-to-one conversation, right? Jason Flatian wrote a great book, One to Many, right? Okay. And, I've taken Jason's webinar course, right? Which is a funny story because I was at Perry Belcher's first mastermind that he was doing before he got into Driven, and Glenn Ledwell was there, who and some other folks. And after the mastermind, we went out to dinner, right? There's about 10 of us, right? Jason was one of them, Glenn was one of them, and some other folks that you would know. And then we played credit card roulette for dinner. You ever play that?
I haven't. I've heard of it, but I have not played it yet.
I had never played it before. So credit card roulette is everybody gives you their credit card, you put it in a hat or a bag, whatever, you eat dinner and the check comes, okay? And then somebody picks out the credit cards, right, to see who's going to pay. The last credit card pays, right? So mine was the last credit card. So the dinner was around $2,000, okay? No problem. I had a lot of fun, okay? It's all about relationships, bro. It's all about relationships. So I remember, though, the next day, I'm a little off point, but this is funny. The next day, I go to the event, right? And everybody from the dinner's coming up to me, going, "Oh, I'm so sorry you lost, man. Paul, I'm so sorry you lost." And I said this, Aleric. I said, "I didn't lose. I'll be in touch," right? And so I've now I called Jason one day and was asking him a question about something else, and he said, "Hey, bro, listen, you know what? Would you like to come to my event as my guest?" So again, everything happens in life for a reason, okay? And once you are in command of your side of the street, if you will, then you can really direct your traffic wherever you want it to go. And the same thing happens in marketing. Same thing happens in writing a piece of music. It all is related, but the thing about being able to create your own, as I say, create your own language in marketing is, again, bro, you do it really well. If I get, 30 YouTube offers, blah, blah, a week, probably more, through Facebook or email, whatever, I'm always going to look at yours. Why am I always going to look at yours? Not because I'm on your podcast, not because you're my friend, which you are, but because your stuff speaks to me. And if it speaks to me, I don't really need to hear anything else, man, because I know where you're coming from. You're authentic, which is important in marketing. You're heart-centered, and you really deliver value and content. because you care about people. And so when I work with people, whether it's one-on-one or in a group or they buy one of my programs, my objective is that once they consume whatever I have to offer, my first objective is that their life is better, okay? Because I don't think about the money. It's great to make money, okay? And I'm not trying to say money's bad, but my business philosophy is great content, great value, make money. So if I do 1 and 2 really well, 3 is going to happen. And so a lot of marketers out there, I think, and we've all seen it, Aleric, and I'm not judging people, but again, if it doesn't speak to me, if it's not in my frequency, because I like to talk about frequency a lot, if it's not in my frequency, I'm going to go next, and then I'm going to find something that's in my frequency. So it's important as a marketer, the roundabout way to get back to this point, as a marketer, it's important to know who your audience is. And people say, well, who's your audience? Well, I speak to everybody. Maybe you do. That's fine. But the truth of the matter is there's still some kind of a segment of your market that's more going to probably get your stuff, and then that can grow from there. But if you're not speaking in the frequency of who those people are, about where they are in their life right now, because if you don't meet people where they are in their life right now, they're not going to listen to you, because there's too much noise out there. All right. And what's the noise now? The noise now is AI. AI is an incredible tool. I'm sure you play around with it as well. AI is an incredible tool. Everybody can play around with AI if they want to. Okay. It has lots of different applications. The thing about AI is, there's always 2 camps about AI. One is AI is going to replace human beings and blah, blah, and all that stuff and whatever. Or AI is a tool that can help you. The truth of the matter is AI is like anything else. If you know how to direct it, it'll give you what you need. If you don't, it's not going to work for you. But the noise now is AI, and so how do you break through that noise? Well, you learn how to use it. It's a tool like anything else. One of my products is a tool. Your products are tools for people to take their life from where they are now to the next level. I don't know if that's...
I love it.
That's kind of where I'm coming from.
It's so valuable looking at all of that and how these pieces come together. It's something, and no wonder we're on the same wavelength here, because, the mindset that you're approaching things with and you're approaching your marketing with and the way you approach your business with, which is all interconnected, is such an important piece. And everything that you're sharing, leading with value, leading with your heart, right? Actually going and looking to create a bigger impact and a bigger ripple effect on the people that you're working with. Just continuing in what you're saying, I know we share the same, philosophy here. When you're going and marketing, it's not just helping those people get from where they're at and where they're looking to go, but they have their own family or business or friends or community that they impact. And then when you help them go from here to here, they can help others go as well. And it just creates this really positive ripple effect in the world. So
absolutely, man. Very, very well said. Absolutely, bro. And you should never lose sight of that as a marketer, because marketers have the ability to influence. Okay, and influence is a very powerful thing. Okay, if I can influence people to make a decision in their life the way I want them to make a decision, then I better be coming from a place of high value, high authenticity, and true caring for people. Okay, because a lot of marketers, and again, I don't need to judge, a lot of in all businesses, a lot of people think about the money. Okay, I'm going to just make money. I always tell people, listen, there were the days, Aleric, and you remember these days, where everybody was looking for the business in a box. Okay, even today, people are looking for done for you. Okay, now there is no such thing as done for you, in my opinion. Okay, I remember when I first spoke at a Harv Eker stage, first time I ever spoke, I spoke at an event called Never Work Again. That was the name of the event. And so I said to Harv, what's this all about? He said, well, listen, it's all about passive income. And, the stage had a hammock on it, the beach scene, Mai Tais on the table, blah, blah, and all that. And so the impression was, you never have to work. You never have to work, man. Money's going to just roll in. And so after the event, I went up to Harv. I said, that's really not how it works, Art. Even if you buy a business in a box, you still got to open the box. You still got to take the stuff out of the box. You still got to put it down and set it up. There's work involved. Okay? So get over it. Okay? But you can set it up the way you want to set it up, and then you can operate from there. right? And so I always found that was kind of interesting. And the other aspect of the information marketing world and education, or even customer service, and just to touch on that a minute, I don't know about you, but I like to talk to a human being. Okay, it's really hard to talk to a human being these days. Customer service is really important. There's two pieces I think that in marketing that maybe most people or some people don't really think about. And the first is onboarding. Okay, and what do I mean by that? So if you buy a product from me, well, I'm sure if they buy a product from you or whomever's listening to this, if they buy a product from you, you better make sure that the next time you have a touch point with them, which should be immediately, that it really empowers and inspires them. It's not like, oh, well, thanks so much for buying this. No. Onboarding, it's really about standing out from the crowd, if you will. And then the whole idea of customer service is so important for people, because I know when people buy stuff from whomever, it doesn't really matter. There's one or two things can happen. Either you're going to have great customer service, or you're going to buy something, they're going to say, well, good luck. Hope it works for you. That's not good. So it's important, again, the human connection, because we're in a crazy time in the world. I don't care it's not about politics. We're just in a crazy time in the world. There's a lot of things going on, okay? And as I said earlier in the beginning of the call, there's a lot of noise. But the truth of the matter is that since there's so much going on in the world, it's kind of hard to find out, unless you're really mindful and you're paying attention, it's really hard to find out what path you should go down, which is why it's even more important for you as a marketer to speak to people and understand where they're at. And how do you do that? Well, it's easy to do that. You can do surveys, you can do assessments, you can do quizzes, you can do all that kind of stuff, which gives you data, okay? Because data is really important, okay? And so I feel that not enough people do that. I know I do that. I know you do that. But if you're not invested, I always tell people, listen, if you invest in me, I invest in you. That's it. It's really kind of simple. And so the messaging around marketing is, I always talk about this concept called LEAD, L-E-A-D. I always like to use acronyms, right? So LEAD is about, first, the L is listen. So you want to listen to your market. You want to listen to the noise out there. You want to listen to the chatter out there. You want to listen to that. You want to listen to what your competition is doing. You want to listen to the feedback you get from people that maybe have purchased something from you or not. So if you don't listen, then you can't craft a message that is in the frequency of the people you want to talk to. Once you listen and you're solid around that, then the E is about engagement. It's about engagement. People want connection, man. People are longing for connection. The world, from COVID and everything else, we've lost the human connection. This is awesome. We get to talk to each other, right? Not many people get to do this, okay? So you have to engage with people. And what does that mean? That means you have to be authentic. You have to be truthful, okay? You have to put yourself out there. You have to be humble, okay? I don't know everything, thank God, okay? I always tell people, if things were perfect, I'd have nothing to work on. And I love working on myself, okay? And so you got to engage. You got to engage with your market, okay? And engaging is a lot of different things. It's asking for advice, okay? It's being able to admit when you're wrong, if you will. And really, who knows you better than you? That's number one. But the other part of it is that a lot of people say, well, I don't know what to give my audience now. Well, you know what I tell them to do? Ask your audience. Why don't you ask your audience what they want? Because you don't want to give them what they don't want. So you might as well ask them. That's engaging them in the process they feel part of, okay? The A is attention. Pay attention. Don't lose sight of what's going on. Pay attention. Pay attention to everything. Pay attention to how people respond to your emails. Pay attention to how people respond to what you send out to them. Pay attention to your open rates. Pay attention to what works and what doesn't work. Pay attention to your subject lines, and pay attention to, because that gives you the ability to adapt and course correct. Because I don't know about you, man, I'm course correcting all the time. And it's kind of fun to course correct, okay? And then the D is discipline. You got to be disciplined. Because too many people fly by their seat of the pants. Don't worry, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but you got to be disciplined in what you're doing, okay? So I have really great discipline, Aleric. Okay, I think that's one of my good qualities. A lot of people will tell you that about me. So I have a morning ritual, right? I spend the first hour of my day on me. Okay, that's a product I'm creating. It's called Good Morning Great Day. I never ever look at this thing. It's a phone, I think, right? I never look at this thing until I finish my ritual. So I wake up in the morning, I pray. First thing I do is I pray. Next thing I do is I do a gratitude exercise. Next thing I do is I drink a 8-ounce glass of good water with some salt in it. A thing I learned from Gary Brecka. Do you know Gary Brecka?
Yeah. Well, I don't know
Yeah.
him personally, but I know of
Yeah,
him.
yeah. Okay, Gary. So it's got all the trace minerals you need. Okay, do that every morning. Then I play with my animals for 10 minutes. Why do I play with my animals? Because they get me out of my head and into my heart. They teach me unconditional love. I want to come from love, man. That's where I'm coming from every day. If I start there, I'm going to have a good day. Okay. After that, what I do is I listen to my 15-minute good morning, great day sculptation, my brain technology called tuning in. I don't call it meditation because everybody else calls it meditation. I call it tuning in. What's meditation? It's basically tuning in, right? So again, creating my own language, right? Listen to my 15-minute morning good morning, great day. And I'm talking to myself. I do the visualization, which I call mind sculpting. I'm talking to myself. I'm talking to myself having a great day. Now, I've listened to that thing for, I don't know, last 10 years. So I listened to the same damn thing 1,000 times because repetition is what happens so you can be consistent. And this is the same thing happens in marketing, okay? Then after I do that, Alec, I read 3 books. I read 365 Days of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, 365 Days to Think and Grow Rich, and a book called The Art of Living by Epictetus. Now, this is just one of those books I go like this. Wherever it ends up, I read. This is a daily book. So today, is April 2nd. I probably read April 2nd in this book 20 times. So I've been doing this 20 years, okay? Then the last thing I do after I finish that is I write. I write a thing called Good Morning, Great Day, which I got a book deal for. It's going to be my own 360-day book, right? And by the time I finish that, which takes about an hour, I'm ready to have a good day because I'm out of my head and I'm into my heart and I'm not distracted by this, okay? Because if you wake up in the morning and you give your power over to something outside of you, it's game over, right? And then the other thing I do, just because I love this part of my morning ritual, is I walk around and I talk and I touch all my plants. Now that's a little woo-woo, if you will, but plants are living beings. There's a great thing on Netflix called the Life of Plants, which is just awesome. Because plants, the universe is alive, man. It's alive and abundant. And then I make my smoothies, I make my juice, and I go to the gym. And so by 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm ready to rock and roll, bro. Okay. Now, if I don't do my morning ritual, then I don't feel like I feel like shit, if you will. Okay, because I'm not following through on honoring myself, and I'm not following through on the discipline necessary for me to show up in the world as the example I want to lead by. Okay, now I'm not telling people they should do what I do, but what I'm saying is do something. Do something so you start your day in the power of you. And once you start your day in the power of you, your frequency, which is unlike anybody else's. There's nobody on the planet like you, bro. There's nobody on the planet like me. And there's nobody on the planet, anybody that's listening and watching this. You're all unique human beings and individuals. You all have unique frequency. You have a song in you that nobody else can play. Only you can play it. Only you can dance to the rhythm of your beat. Okay? And if you don't do that and you don't accept that responsibility, then I'm pretty sure things aren't going to go as well as you'd like them to go. So give yourself the opportunity to show up in the fullness of who you are. And that happens in all your marketing too. So by leading that listen, engage, attention, and discipline, that's an important component for any kind of marketing message you want to do, whether it's copy, whether it's creating a course, whether it's doing a YouTube video, whether it's doing a Facebook post, whether it's doing Instagram, whatever touch point that you as a marketer, as a human being, puts out there, which gets people to see you, you better show up so that they feel like you're talking to them. Because if you don't, you know, they're not going to listen to you. There's too many other things to listen to, which is again why you need to be unique and come up with your own version of what you want to put out there, and so that's my philosophy on that whole thing. And again, we talked about mindset for a minute. I like to call it mind state, right? I've read every book on mindset you can imagine. I've read every book on habits you can imagine. Okay, I've read every book on rituals because I know that that's the stuff that drives everything. Okay, so when I talk about, I used to say mindset. All right, Carol Dweck's book was awesome, right? But I realized that, okay, again, I'm creating my own language, Aleric. So I'm going to call it mind state. Why? Because your state of mind creates your mindset. So if your state of mind is in a place where it is tuned in to the frequency that you want to share from an authentic point of view, people will get that. Because I don't know about you, I'm pretty sure this is true for you. I know when people are full of shit, excuse my language. Right? And I don't say that, I don't mean to curse or whatever, but that's kind of, that. I know when I'm full of it. I know, and trust me, I'm full of it sometimes. I'm going to go on record to say that, okay? But I work on myself so I'm not that, okay? I want to show up to my authentic self. So after you lead and you engage, you listen, engage, attention and discipline, then what you got to do is that at least in my opinion, that brings you to be able to create your message, so your message will elevate people, and then they can execute to whatever they want to do, or however they're going to use your stuff, or however they're going to do whatever they do, so that they can create their epic ideal life, is what I call it, and then they go out and they dominate, right? Because you know what? There's too many people out there saying the same thing that you're saying, but the truth of the matter is they're not saying the same thing that you're saying, because you can only say the thing that you say. That's kind of my story there. So I took up a lot of time. I apologize for that, but
oh no, this is great. And that's actually, I was just about to dive into some of your personal development philosophy. But also coming up, I do want to dive a little bit, and well, as we round out the episode here, into some of your golden nuggets from selling over 3 million programs I've started doing. And it's great because it's so similar. It just shows how aligned we are in, philosophy and all of this. Is I ask people about, I call it the win or learn mindset. I know you call it the fail to win mindset. But I actually had this coin made. By the way, I'll ship you one of these. I'll get you.
I love it, bro.
But it's win on one side and says the ripple effect at the top. And then on the other side, it says learn, because it's the other side of the coin. The entrepreneur's mindset, learning is winning. So it's either win or learn, two sides of the same coin. So it completely aligns to, I know you call it fail to win. First off, I'd love to hear your definition of that. But then also second, what is an example of a mistake or what some could deem as a failure that you've had that you actually learned from and actually turned into success?
Well, I'll talk about a personal one, okay? Which obviously had a ripple effect in everything I've done in my life. So, when I was in the jingle business, I made a lot of money, Aleric. And I thought that, oh my God, I'm on the top of the world. People would say to me, man, I want to be like you, and once somebody says that to you, take a deep breath, right? And realize that's not a good thing unless you're showing up in the fullness of who you are. So I made a lot of money in the jingle business, and I ended up acquiring, as I like to call it, a robust cocaine addiction. So I snorted $2,500 a week worth of cocaine for 10 years, okay, until it finally brought me to my knees. And on November 14th, 1988, they put me in a straitjacket and sent me to the 14th floor psych ward at St. Vincent's Hospital, okay, because I was living such a life of lies and deceit and so forth. And so what I learned from that was that I was so disconnected from who I truly am in life. Now, I'm not saying I'm the best thing since ice cream, but I'm a pretty good flavor, okay? But the truth of the matter, so I learned from that moment on that once I ended up trying to be somebody I wasn't, because cocaine gave me a false sense of power, okay? Being somebody I wasn't, then I really just owned who I was. And so that was a big thing for me. It almost killed me. It almost ruined my business. People didn't want to work with me anymore. Nobody wanted to work with me, and I had to reinvent myself. And the truth of the matter is, reinventing yourself is not a bad thing, okay? Because life changes every day. So that was a big lesson for me, and I carry that lesson into everything I do to this day. Because when I, again, as I mentioned earlier, I know when I'm working on something, whether or not I'm really authentic about it and really, or am I trying to just do something like get a quick, fast, whatever? Am I trying to get over on somebody? I know when I'm not. So that's when I really just take a deep breath, settle myself, tune in and really try to show up um, in the authenticness of who I am. Because I also know that not everybody's going to like me, and that's okay. Because I'm not here to please everybody. And if you just understand that, then that's okay. That's okay. There's enough people that I can get to that like what I do and so forth and so on that I can be a force to be reckoned with. I'm good with that. And your other part was that was the
Yeah, well,
one
and
lesson.
it was also, I'm sure it's very similar, was how the fail to win framework. If there's anything that you'd add to what I said with
The win learn.
yeah, win and learn, yeah.
Yeah. So I always say fail to win because a lot of people are afraid to make mistakes. So you know who Les Brown is?
Yeah.
So Les Brown's a good friend of mine. I've known him for years, spoke on stages with him and so forth. I remember one day Les came up to me. We're in the back room of an event. He said, Paul, I want you to know something. He said, when you fall down, make sure you fall down on your back so you're looking up. Never forgot. I use it every time I do a speech or whatever. I use it in podcasts, but I always give him credit. So here's the thing. If you're afraid to fail, then you're going to always play safe. And if you play safe, then that's where you're safe, okay? Because everybody likes to do, the people talk about, oh, I mean, I'm in my comfort zone. Well, when you're in your comfort zone, you're going nowhere. I call it your no zone. And my example is when you were a kid, remember seesaws? Okay, when you're going like this on a seesaw, up and down, you're going somewhere. Most people they like to balance on a seesaw. And when you're balanced, you're going nowhere. So don't be afraid to fail. Failure can lead to breakthroughs. Failure can lead to new ideas. Failure can lead to you making different relationships. So when you fail and you understand that there's nothing wrong with failing, because most people will beat themselves up about it, you know that. There's nothing wrong with failing. Use it as a lesson. It's a lesson to another step in your life. And so if you accept that, then you can fail to win. Okay? That's how I look at failing to win.
I love it. Completely agree. And so, Paul, this has been fantastic. And in just a second, we'll have a final golden nugget to share and maybe something around how you scaled up to that 3 million different programs sold. But before we get into that, how can people find you? Where do you want to send people? I know you got a new book coming out. I'm really excited. I'm definitely going to be picking that up as soon as it comes out. How can people find out more about you?
So you're going to love this one, bro. And I do this every time. People tell me I'm crazy. Okay, so first of all, you can find me. My website is sculpting, SCULPTING, Your Life, YOURLIFE, sculptingyourlife.com. You can go. That's my main brand because when you're sculpting your life and you get out of your own way, then you get to sculpt the masterpiece known as you. Because everybody that's listening to this, you're a masterpiece. Sometimes you just forget it. Don't forget it. Sculptingyourlife.com. The other thing is, here's my personal email. Paul Hoffman 24 @gmail.com. Here's my cell phone number, 323-810-55. Now, people tell me I'm crazy to do that. Well, thank you very much for the input. I appreciate it. It's just data. The reason I do that, ladies and gentlemen, who's ever listening, is because I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve Aleric's community, and I'm here to serve everybody that's on here listening. And if I can help you in any way possible, I'm not trying to sell you anything. Trust me. If I can serve you and help you in any way possible, you have my personal email, you have my cell phone number. If I've stirred up anything in you, you got a question, I can help you in any way, reach out to me. Tell me that you heard me on an Aleric's podcast so I know where you're coming from. I will get back to you. I answer everything. And if you don't, that's on you. But this is an offer for those of you that are listening that are looking for maybe a different way to go or some different information or how can I help you? Because if you're watching Aleric's podcast, okay, if you're watching this, not whether I'm the guest or not, you're obviously looking for information to help you in your life. That's my story.
I love it. Wow. And that is a first, sharing email and phone number, but it's such a generous offer and definitely, encourage everybody to take take Paul up on that. And I just know firsthand how generous you are with your gifts and your time and everything. And I really appreciate you. So I'm going to have to go in a minute or so.
I know, bro.
A final golden nugget. And if you could weave in how you've sold over 3 million programs, I know people are potentially really interested in that. What's your final golden nugget to round out the episode?
So what I like to say is the way I sold, it's really actually 3 million people have bought my programs, okay? But the way I approach it again is really to be authentic and tuned into what I believe the market and my client wants. And how do I do that? Well, I do that by really being very tuned in to what's going on in the marketplace in all the different verticals that I'm in. So my most important nugget that I would tell anybody that's looking to get into marketing or selling products or doing whatever is to just, before you do anything, know why you want to do it, because the why is important, and then get out of your way. Because if you think you know everything or you have all the answers, you're going to get in your own way. And once you get in your own way, you can't get out of it. So don't just get out of your own way. But again, everybody has a message. Everybody has a message. I always tell everybody has a history or a herstory. You got a message. Own it, claim it, and be it. And then go out and share it.
Very, very wise words. Thank you so much again, Paul. This has been fantastic. Thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you, brother.
Excellent. And I mean it. So